Okay, I've got the top of the hour or top of the half hour on my clock, so we're going to get started. So welcome everybody. I hope you're having a good day so far. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to Jen Hill Construction for setting up this webinar so that we're able to get together today. My name is Sam Justice, and I'm one of the engineers here at Presto Geosystems. We manufacture erosion control, stormwater management, and porous pavement products. We're located in northern Wisconsin, but we work closely with Jen Hill throughout Tennessee on a wide variety of projects. Most of you know the great team at Jen Hill, so we're going to dive right into the presentation so that there are enough time for questions at the end. If you do have any questions during the presentation, I have everybody's lines muted, but feel free to type them in the chat window and I'll get to them at the end. So the focus of today's presentation is on rigid porous pavement products with both gravel and topsoil surfaces for effective stormwater control. So the natural first question is, why are porous pavements needed and how are they different than the standard pavement surfaces we usually see? Porous pavements that address in a cost-effective way regulations that need to be met. After 40+ years, the Clean Water Act continues to create the need for stormwater management for both quantity and quality. And most states have developed non-point pollution regulations with specific targets. Local regulations may require even more stringent standards if the project is near a protected wetland or water source. Porous pavements are one way to meet these criteria while still performing in a structurally meaningful and long-lasting way. Another reason to choose a porous pavement system is because you want one. If you have poor soil conditions, which are becoming more common because a lot of better suited sites are becoming scarce and land is at a premium. High stormwater management value is the desire to make the best use of that valuable high-cost land and reduce the need for stormwater ponds by increasing the porosity of your pavement. Porous pavement systems handle stormwater at the point of impact, percolating the water where it falls, and avoiding conveyance pipes or structures that otherwise might be necessary. And sustainable solutions are very popular with the public right now because of the high percentage of recycled materials, reduced landfilling of those abundant recycled materials, and the ability to achieve green energy credits. So there are a couple different porous pavement options available to you. The more traditional and probably the more well-known option for porous pavements is to use the pervious version of traditional pavement, concrete, asphalt, or paver blocks. These applications allow for normal traffic frequency use, have increased infiltration over their non-porous versions, which can help with stormwater requirements. And hard surface porous pavements, such as these, act very similarly to their non-porous counterparts, but they do often suffer from just going to be in the cross section. All three of them. So this is an extra installation step that requires additional time, adds cost, and needs extra materials to create. However, there are some significant drawbacks to using these more traditional methods of the system, and because you're going to have higher maintenance expenses over the lifetime of the project. Regular deep cleaning is required to reduce clogged areas, as is resurfacing or replacement of lost material due to raveling, which occurs because there are weak bonds between all of these materials. In general, pervious concrete and asphalt surfaces tend to look unfinished, leading to some questionable aesthetics. Humans are designed from the ground up to function as porous pavement. The first is a vegetated porous pavement system. It's used for occasional or infrequent traffic and delivers the aesthetics of a green space. Local vegetation plants. A unique blend of topsoil and clean aggregate is used as a base layer, allowing for root growth while still providing the necessary stabilization strength. Our other option is an aggregate surface porous pavement. This system can handle higher frequency traffic, including daily use. The low-cost confined aggregate can perform as an on-site stormwater detention basin, reducing or even eliminating the need for conveyance pipes or other stormwater infrastructure. The structural strength, the loading capabilities, and all depend on what subgrade you have, what infill you choose, and your base material. So these are some of the important characteristics that are inherent in the geoblock, meaning that the panels are not meant to bend or twist. This is quite different than some of the other porous pavement units that are available, which are considered flexible systems and have significantly reduced loading capabilities. The attributes that have the biggest impact on the load distribution are the paver's wall strength and stiffness, and the strong tabular connection between paver units. An important aspect of the geoblock units is the large amount of open space in the bottom of each cell, which allows for full root penetration so the grass surface is thick and uniform. An engineered base of topsoil and aggregate mix provides an optimum growing medium while still allowing for vehicle traffic. The geopave aggregate surface units are very similar to the geoblock units with the same rigid paver characteristics, but they have specific features needed for the performance with aggregate infill. The main difference that I want to highlight is going to be the monolithic mesh bottom. This is a molded in-place mesh on the underside of the paver unit. This mesh keeps the stone infill from migrating underneath the unit, and the integrated nature assists in the overall rigidity of the paver unit. The lattice bottom spreads the load similar to a snowshoe, so that the wheel loads do not create ruts. The geopave units are locked together with a strong connection device to create a fully integrated, contiguous pavement that's highly resistant to traffic stresses. The geopave system was designed using a finite element analysis and will not lift up over time, as you can see with other systems. So we've talked about the characteristics that make rigid porous pavement units special. With these in mind, we can now talk about the benefits of choosing a porous pavement system over a traditional hard surface pavement. Because the geopave integrated aggregate infill, the stormwater infiltrates exceptionally fast. And the loose and protected topsoil infill in the geoblock units allow water to infiltrate faster than any typical vegetated area on site. Both the geopave and geoblock systems offer significant storage of stormwater in the cross-section, reducing flooding potential on and around your pavement for water at the surface. Pavements that allow water to flow through the surface into a base of open graded aggregate can reduce porous pavement material, and your subgrade soil, along with the porosity of your base material, determines how much stormwater storage may be required both underneath and at the surface. If your native subgrade can be sloped to maintain velocity, it's better to provide a geotextile filter around the perimeter of a drainage trench with a pipe encapsulated in stone. The main thought is to prevent clogging, and this method will be based on what type of stone you have. So you can have a nice flat surface parking lot and still collect your stormwater with ease. Structures like this, in this case, in the base course, do not negatively affect the overall strength or stability of your paver system. So this has requirements to support the load. Reducing your potential sunken drive lanes are going to form and cause failure points. And the units are strong enough to drive on when they're unfilled, which makes installation both faster and easier. And the units offer a large size, about 5.5 square feet aggregate surfaces that mesh bottom to form a continuum. With disjointed cell walls tend to flex, and they just don't have the same load spreading capabilities. So a great application for these products is that the owners had wanted to keep in place. So the shared wall system and strong connections between the units create a framework that's highly resistant to movement or breakage from vehicle turning stresses, service vehicle areas, allowing for starting, stopping, turning, and everything in between. The panels are not going to be damaged by any normal vehicle activity, even from the heaviest trucks or semis. And the paver additional parking spaces while still meeting stormwater with no need to create additional stormwater infrastructure, such as drainage swales or ponds. The cell walls to be visible, and the geoblock units allow for full vegetation growth with a natural look so that the cell walls are not visible through the grass. So whatever look you're trying to go for on your site, you can achieve with these products without that unfinished look that's common in or densely populated areas. It can also help you meet stormwater requirements that limit the amount of hard surface in your landscape plans, which is becoming an increasingly common requirement from cities and townships. This is something we experience all across the U.S. So there are a number of constructability to install. Tracked or rubber-tired construction vehicles can drive on both the geopave and geoblock units when they're unfilled, as you can see here. Paving crews and specialized paving equipment are not necessary without waiting for queue time or sequence construction limits. The geopave, the slope does need to be gradual, than about 8%, around 5 degrees. I'm interested in having a sloped step like this bed and breakfast did for an attractive visual appeal. So a locked in and forget it. Owners and maintenance crews are definitely going to appreciate this feature. And we have bright yellow delineators available for parking based on the inputs and system requirements. It's a very basic cross-section, but it can be helpful during the beginning of the design process. If needed, there are additional calculations and CAD details that the engineering team can provide. But it's a good first step when talking to regulators to show that there is stormwater storage with this type of system. So let's take a close that's going to limit the amount of stormwater infiltration of the system. So the biggest factor in determining the base depth is going to be the strength of your native soil, expressed as the California bearing ratio. The higher the ratio, the stronger the soil. The strength of the geopave system is enough that even for the highest load rating, AASHTO H20 loading, or your fully loaded fire trucks, there's a low base depth requirement, only 6 inches, compared to up to 14 inches from lighter weight flexible systems. And it's important to note that this table only shows the minimum depth requirement. Additional base can be increased for stormwater storage if required. So there are a wide variety of systems, including fire and utility lanes, have some problems due to not having those common issues are addressed in the design. Because the system says it allows stormwater infiltration, it doesn't mean that it's going to be appropriate for your project. So I do want to share a case. Antioch Pike, a cell tower area, was located on a slight hill, so stormwater would run off. The project is from 2013, requiring a porous pavement system to manage stormwater on site to reduce that runoff. The project owners wanted to keep the maintenance requirements low, and the construction area was limited, so there's no space for a stormwater detention pond to be built. Because this project was primarily for specialty equipment, and the crew, which had no prior experience to installing the geopave units, was able to achieve an installation rate of about 1,200 square feet a day, including excavation. The U-clip connectors are exactly where the clips are needed. It's a great option. And here is the self-excavation required. So this was a great compromise between function and environmental concerns. And here's the access road and pad about a year after installation. Still looking good and performing well, with very little maintenance required. Some recommended tips for keeping the geopave system in good shape include keeping the lot clear of organics, such as fallen leaves, by either raking or leaf blowing, and making sure snowplow blades are kept about an inch above the geopave unit. I know placing porous pavements in cold weather or snowy conditions is a concern for many regulators, so we have quite a bit of information available on our website, answering a lot of the common questions we see. Or feel free to contact us directly, and so now we're going to focus on the geoblock vegetative aggregate, which allows for enough topsoil to promote geoblock grass paver is similar to the geopave system, but grass pavements are meant for occasional use only. So for overflow parking, for parks, churches, and stadiums, basically anywhere that you don't anticipate vehicle traffic every single day. The 2 depths for the if the expected loads are light, think cars and pickup trucks, you don't need to support as much as roads that are going to carry fire trucks. The 2 products are similar except for depth and perform in the same way, and we can help you decide which is going to be the right choice for you. The engineered base acts the same as it does for the geopave system, with higher loads requiring more base. The deeper 2-inch GeoBlock 5150 unit can have shallower base depth. So if having a thin cross-section is important, that's the way to go. Facilities that need to be avoided, or if excavating costs are too great. And again, the table only shows minimum depth. The depth of the base can be increased when additional stormwater storage is required. And there are flexible vegetative vehicle loads. Those ruts are just going to keep getting deeper over. Systems require the infill to be sand, not topsoil. It's not hard to imagine the difference in grass growing in sand versus a nice nutrient-rich topsoil. And we have some cases of parking needs. And to provide a new site entrance, the system was installed in the summer of 2010, which satisfied the requirements based on the expected vehicle loading. And the cells were then filled with a local topsoil and seeded. As previously mentioned, it's easy to field cut the panels to accommodate curves and other obstacles so that the grass and the vehicle support goes right up to the edge. So there's not going to be any areas that might fail due to lack of support. And here you can see how the grass completely camouflages the panel. So it looks just like a normal lawn. Months after completion, the vegetated parking lot is functioning as planned and is heavily used for services and special events. The city of Knoxville has used this project as an example of development, and the church leadership is very satisfied with the results from this project. Maintenance of the grass pavement is similar to maintaining any grass service. Your standard lawnmower is going to do the trick. Our next case 8, the project owner contacted Jen Hill to install. It's a common way to handle curves if you don't want to cut the panels to fit the exact dimensions of the space and seated. The stone around the curve should be mixed with topsoil so that it's that same mix of sand. And you can see the fully vegetated system here on the right. The sidewalk area hasn't changed, but now the area is accessible by emergency vehicles. So the engineering team here at Presto Geosystems, including myself, works closely with landscape designers and engineers, offering a free project evaluation service for each porous pavement project. We will analyze your site-specific data and offer a recommendation that's going to meet your project needs. So we've made it to the end. The aesthetic, aggregate, or vegetated infill are some of the good construction for questions about pricing and local support, as well as this recorded webinar on our YouTube channel to share with any others that might have missed this presentation or for review in the future. And you've earned that half PDH credit for being here today. So the email that you'll see in a few days is going to provide you instructions on how to receive your certificate if you want one. So I'm going to open the floor to questions. Again, you can feel free to type them in the chat window. I'm also going to unmute everybody's phones. Hopefully, it looks like there's some trouble with some people's phones staying muted. But if you are interested in asking a question, now is the time. I'm going to stay online. I also know that it is the end of our half hour and everybody's days are quite filled now. So if you need to log off, feel free. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me or anybody from Jen Hill at a later time. So I don't see any questions in the chat window. I have most of you unmuted. Some of you are staying muted for probably the line. But if you have questions, now is the time.
Well, this is David Dokauer. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so one question, I guess one of the things I guess you'd have to do, especially on the gravel, is you'd have to do weed control. What kind of problems do you have with weeds? And then do you have a problem with the type of pesticides to use, herbicides to use? Because this does, even though it is percolating in the soil, it does go down into the water system, or could.
So that's a great question. Yes, so there is the possibility of weeds or that volunteer vegetation coming into the aggregate system, same as it would with any stone area. Going through and just doing basic weed maintenance, pulling those weeds up is going to work. That would, I assume, be part of your regular maintenance plan. You can spray pesticides or put any sort of weed prevention out on the site. It's not going to damage the geopave panels, those are made of high-density polyethylene, so they're not going to react to any sort of chemicals. But yes, it does have the possibility of getting that pesticide put into the groundwater system through percolation. So that's something that you're going to need to consider for your specific site. But there is nothing inherent about the geopaved system stopping weeds from forming, but it's easy to go out and pull those weeds up.
Thank you.
Daniel Smith. Can you tell us a little bit more about the gravel, the water storage and the gravel? Some of the guidelines one might use for that?
Sure. So in general, we say that you're going to get about a 30% storage for the depth of base that you have. So if you were to have a 6-inch base, you'd get approximately 2 inches of stormwater storage for a storm event. And then you would assume that that water would percolate into the groundwater system and you would receive that storage back for your next event. This is based on the idea that you're using a clean stone, so you're limiting the amount of fines that are going to be in that stone so that you have open void spaces within your base layer. And the water is going to store within those void spaces. That's where the storage comes from. So in general, we say about 30 to 35% of your base depth can be assumed to be your storage capacity.
Okay, and like it'd be like a 57 stone or something like that, but then the stone that goes into the paver is a more kind of a typical stone you would use for a wearing surface. Is that correct?
Yes, so your base course is going to be, yeah, a 57 stone is a good gradation. And then your infill stone is going to be a slightly smaller stone. We recommend about 3/8 to 3/4 of an inch as that stone size. So your void space is going to be slightly less in the actual paver unit, so those top 2 inches of your cross section. So we generally say you're not going to get a lot of storage space there. So really what your base depth is how much storage you can assume. So you have the 2-inch paver and 6 inches of base, so you have an 8-inch overall cross section, but you're assuming you're only getting storage in that 6-inch base and only 30% of that base. So you get 2 inches of stormwater storage per event.
Okay, and one other quick question, like, you know, the little cell tower example you gave, if you've got a really clayey soil as your base, for instance, and you put this stone down and you get a storm event, would the water then might percolate out the sides of the, instead of necessarily going into the ground? Have you ever run into that before?
So yes, so if your site is on a slope and then you have a fairly impervious ground, so that clayey soil, you're not going to get that fast infiltration. There is the potential that water could percolate through the system and reach that boundary between the open graded aggregate base and the clay layer, and there's the chance that it could flow along that line, that interface between the two. In that case, we do recommend having some sort of drainage trench on the low area of the slope to collect that water so that it doesn't just sort of flow out from around the system.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And I guess in any case, it still slows the water down. I mean, it's not like having an asphalt surface. So.
Yes, it is going to be significantly less than what you see for sheet runoff from a totally impervious surface. So it still has the potential to be there, but it is going to be much less.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay. Do you have any cost data on your website, like kind of like I don't know, budgetary costs for the pavers themselves? The stone, yeah, but
So for pricing costs, Jen Hill is going to be your best resource. They distribute all of our products in Tennessee. We don't sell direct. So we don't have pricing available on our website, but a quick call to Jen Hill will be able to give you that initial budget estimate.
okay, good. Yeah, we had a guy come by, a sales rep come by about last year, so somebody I can contact. Okay.
This is Trey Hightower. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, this is Trey with Jen Hill. So obviously you can call me, or I can give you my email address. It's trey@jenhill.com, TREY @jenhill.com, JENHILL.com. And I can answer those more specific questions regarding pricing and things like that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'll stop it here because we have gone over our time. If there are any other questions that come up, please feel free to email me. Again, my info is on the screen, or reach out to Jen Hill. If they don't know the answer, they can get in contact with me. And we'd be happy to help you with any porous pavement projects that you might have coming down the pipeline. So thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you, Jen Hill, for sponsoring today's webinar. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.